Hello world of sim racing and welcome to another episode of me talking to a camera. The last episode this year where we're going to talk about Formula 1. And before we get started with the video, honest congratulations to Max Verstappen for winning the Drivers' Championship in Formula 1 2021, despite it is really going on a big controversy about the overall results. And I mean, as it stands right now, Max has won the championship. Max deserves to win the championship. His driving this year has been outstanding. He has been aggressive, very aggressive, perhaps over-aggressive. He has been unlucky throughout the year with a couple of incidents, with a couple of stewards' decisions. So have Lewis, but all in all, I think, you know, altogether it is deserved either way. Lewis Hamilton would have had deserved it, but Max just deserves it the same way. Anyway, let's have a look into the weekend though, because it brought us, besides the most intense and the most suspenseful championship of pretty much all times, it brought us a couple of controversial topics, controversial decisions, controversial situations, and as a viewer, very contradicting results and very contradicting events. And that's what we're going to look a little bit deeper into in this episode. First things first though, let's have a quick talk, a recap of the race. We've had an outstanding performance of Max Verstappen in the qualifying. The Red Bull on a single lap with the soft tires has been the quicker car. I don't even blame the Perez slipstream, because the second lap of Max Verstappen, I'm not sure whether there was slipstream on the straight between turn 5 and 6, but certainly between turn 7 or between turn 8 and 9. Unlike in the first attempt, there has not been a Perez slipstreaming Max Verstappen down the straight. And yet still at this stage, his middle sector was, I think it was even faster than in the first attempt. Can't remember right now, but it was not significantly slower. In other news, besides slipstream, yes or no, if Max wouldn't have had the slipstream, Lewis would have still not have a chance to get pole position. So that was an outstanding drive, was an outstanding lap, was a great performance of Red Bull getting the car tuned into for the quali trim, and quite rightly so, they started on pole position. Despite obviously Max has flat spotted the front left tire of his medium compound in the Q2 session, which meant he had to go out again on the softs. Qualifying for Q3 on the softs meant starting the race on the soft as well. As we've all seen, it has not been the advantage on the start due to a driving error of Max, I guess, on the start, with having too much wheel spin and so on. So Lewis could even capitalize on that, and despite being on the medium, on the harder compound tire, could take the lead actually. Now, going into lap 1, turn 6. So the first dive bomb, the first, just go in, squeeze your nose in, get Lewis wide, and then complain on the radio. You know what? Given all circumstances, given all decisions, and that is what gets us already into the topic. Like, if you look at Brazil, Lewis going wide there, like no further action, no investigation necessary, isn't it? If you look at Saudi Arabia, possibly one could argue that leaving a track gaining advantage is a 5-second penalty, because back then in Saudi Arabia, Max was shuffled back in the grid, and also later on when the second incident in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix happened, he was given a 5-second penalty. So arguably, yes, it is a 5-second penalty, or he has to give the place back, or. So the inconsistency of the FIA ruling, of the stewarding, of the FIA decision making that happened all year, just has hit us in that very moment again. Now, there is the one party saying he needs to give the place back. There is the other party saying it's absolutely fine, he had to avoid a collision. What is the right answer to that? According to FIA, according to what has been done throughout the season, we don't know. We can't determine, there is no black and white stuff, and that is a big problem. And that should be addressed for next year. That is the first point I want to raise. Then what we need to talk about, obviously, Perez. That is the definition of a wingman, 100%. He deserves a medal, not just the meal or, I don't know, a vacation or whatever. Like this, on the edge, but I think still to the rules, defending of Lewis, costing him 8 seconds to get Max back in on his rear wing, was amazing. Like, that has been an outstanding piece of car positioning. Arguably, you could argue, why did Lewis not wait for the DRS line like he would have had done a week before in Saudi Arabia? Did he think he could easily drive away from Perez with the DRS wide open? I don't know. We can argue about that for long. We will probably never know what was going on and why the decision making was how it was in that moment. But the way Perez has conducted himself, the way Perez has fought for that position, has made Lewis losing time, is something we would have not seen by Valtteri Bottas, I'm 100% sure. Like, we have had situations this year and it just didn't happen, you know. It just, like, look at Sanford. He did, personally I think he did not even try to make it that hard for Max. But yeah, either way, one has to say kudos to Sergio Perez. It was on the edge, it was super hard, it was perhaps a bit dangerous or over the line, but according to the rules, I think it was fine. It was perfectly well. So whining of Mercedes and Lewis confirmed at that point. But I see nothing wrong with it. And well, was a very, very good, very, very nice moves. And in this situation, the whole tragedy for Mercedes has actually started. Because imagine if Lewis would have just passed Perez and then Max would have gone to the two-stop strategy and everything. Lewis would have had A, enough time to cover it, B, when the virtual safety car came out, despite whether it was too long of a gap or not, when the virtual safety car came out, the tragedy was, like, Max obviously went to pit, and you cannot do that first. If you do it first, you lose track position to Max, because Max would simply do the opposite to what Lewis does. So, as being in the lead, you are always in the disadvantage when a safety car comes out. It's quite evident, you know. And I 100% understand that Mercedes has not boxed Lewis. But imagine if Max goes in, then Lewis has those 8 seconds that he was costed by Perez. He would have had them. Then still, as soon as the safety car would have ended, then Verstappen would have had a gap of 25, 26, maybe 27 seconds, and Lewis would have been safe to pit to cover off that strategy, whether he goes on a fresh medium then, or another tire, regardless of whatever. You can even do a safety stop and easily keep the position. But that was the first strategical advantage that Red Bull had with Perez holding Lewis up. And well, the rest of the story we do know. Then the full safety car came out, and obviously Lewis would have had the chance to cover Verstappen's pit stop during the VSC, but the VSC got deactivated or ended right at the exact moment when Lewis was coming around turn 15, turn 16, so the final two corners. Which, in other news, if they would have had taken the risk and the gamble and would have boxed, Lewis would have lost track position quite evidently. And what we've seen from lap 1, I'm 100% sure that Mercedes said themselves, we rather try to nurse home a hard tire and kind of win the race by a 2.5 second margin, instead of getting Max close to Lewis and give the chance for a contact, give the chance for a controversial overtake or whatnot. And I'm not even accusing Max would have done so. But I think for Mercedes, the top priority was, whatever happens, we don't want them to both to appear side by side on the track. I think that is what Mercedes had in mind all race long. And well, for the second safety car, there they had no chance, absolutely, because again, Lewis have not even had the gap to Verstappen in the back. Was only 11 seconds or so. So even a safety car pit would have not meant he is safe in track position. However, again, Verstappen could have come in, went for the fresh softs, obviously, and then the tragedy with the safety car happened. Remember the team radio where Lewis was complaining that the safety car is not going full speed? Well, here's the issue. Because the safety car was not going full speed, the problem was that Lewis had no chance to actually, just drive in the 40% off pace, kind of keep the same pace, keep the same gap to Verstappen for the majority or for all the lap that was going on. And effectively, the safety car slowed down, was slower than Max, and by the next time Lewis and the safety car would have crossed the start-finish line, the gap between Lewis and Max would have been smaller than a safety car pit window would have had allowed again. That is the full tragedy. That is how Lewis Hamilton ended up with a hard tire behind a safety car with a 40-lap-old hard, and Max Verstappen behind him with a 3-lap or 5 or 6-lap-old soft. And, well, the safety car, we do not need to argue about that it is absolutely mandatory. It had to come. It was the absolute right call. The shunt of Latifi in the spot, how the car was on the track, it gave no room for anything different apart from a red flag. And how a red flag could have maybe spiced up the situation in a good way, we're going to discuss about that later. But first, we're going to have a look in what the situation is right now. I mean, obviously, and we come back to the events, and I'll really try to showcase it really quick. So, lap 54, Latifi crashes on the exit of turn 14. Lap 54, safety car is deployed. Lap 55, well, beginning of lap 55, or essentially still lap 54, Max Verstappen is going to pit road to pick fresh tires. He then rejoins the track, and the order is P1 Lewis, and behind him a couple of other cars with Norris, Stroll, Vettel, Leclerc, and I think Ocon or Alonso. I think there was an Alpine in between, but effectively from the rows itself, first Lewis, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth other cars, and then track position 2 in formation position 7, that was Max Verstappen. So at the beginning of lap 56, the order was the way that Lewis had 5 cars between him and Max. So lap 56 went on, and we had the message, no cars allowed to overtake, or in other news, no lapped cars to unlap themselves. So the first call that Maisie was doing was saying, okay, we're gonna just stay in the order just how we are, and we're gonna drive on, which according to the safety car regulations is, I think, wrong too. I'm not sure if, well, it is not particularly wrong, whereas it's not particularly correct either. But here there is a possibility where you can decide A, to leave the order as it is right now, or B, to wave the lapped cars by. Taking a decision for one or the other option will play an important role when we talk later on how the rights situation, how the regulations situation about that entire safety car phase is. So, again, first of all, the decision was made, no lapped cars to weave by. Then we had Jonathan Wheatley from Red Bull coming on the radio saying, hey Michael, we're driving a championship and we need to get those cars out of the way, like otherwise, you know, it's going impossible to be a fair race to the end. Then, first of all, nothing happened. Decision stayed as it was. Lap 57, the penultimate lap has begun. And on the back straight, like right after sector 1, there was the call, the lapped cars 14, I think it was Alonso, 18, and I don't know, a couple of cars, like the 5 cars between Max and Lewis, were now allowed to unlap themselves. Meanwhile, behind Max Verstappen, there had been more lapped cars between P3 and P2. So I don't know what the exact position of Sainz was, but Sainz, who has been third in the running order at that point, he had at least Ricciardo in between him and Max Verstappen. So the first thing that happened, like P3, Carlos Sainz, whether he would have had the chance or not, or whether he would have taken the gamble or not, we don't need to speak about that. But actually, Sainz was taken away the opportunity to even go for a P2 or a P1 in the same way as Jonathan Wheatley has before mourned on the radio to Michael Masi to the FIA, you know. So the first thing that has not been 100% fair from the FIA to all competitors around, so the lapped cars between Max and Lewis, they were removed, but the lap cars between Sainz and Verstappen, between P2 and P3, they still remained. They got not removed, which is like you know, I mean, it's taken away the advantage from Hamilton, given the advantage to Verstappen, whilst even disadvantaging the P3 car behind Verstappen, not having a chance to even attack for P2 or even P1, again, regardless whether Sainz wanted to do that or could have done that. It's just, we're talking just about the eventualities at this stage. And so this information was called in the middle of lap 57, and short afterwards it was called safety car in this lap. So what happened is those five cars went by, last lap was going, Lewis on old hards, Verstappen on fresh softs. Verstappen overtook Hamilton, disclaimer, done 5 times weaving on the straight from turn 5 to turn 6. So 2 times is getting reprimanded, but 5 times, what would have been 5 times? I'm not sure. I guess Mercedes did not even care about that, because we all know that probably Max would have been reprimanded, but surely not penalized for it, because, you know, last lap of the championship, it's championship decider. He outplayed the grey rule in a very good way. Let's face it. Weaving is not legal, but personally, I think it was not illegal enough for really it have to been penalized by the FIA or by the stewards. So I'm personally not surprised that Mercedes did not even raise that topic. Anyway, we all know the end. Verstappen in the end has won the race, has become the world champion, and well, as it stands, because right now there is still you know, Mercedes has still lodged the interest and has indicated that they want to appeal a decision of the past Grand Prix, which they have time to do so until, I think, Thursday, somewhere around Thursday evening, maybe Friday morning, like 96 hours after they have announced their intention to appeal. Did that even happen on Sunday? I can't remember. Like, ever since my hat is just going around in circles. I mean, as you know, I'm a Mercedes fanboy, so well, not a fanboy, but I'm a Mercedes fan. So let's face it. As you can imagine, by me being a Mercedes fan, and at the end of the video, we're gonna have a very interesting insight into that. But first things first. So the race is finished, and I want to really point out that that Lewis Hamilton has shown a greater sportsmanship that I would have had expected from him, knowing his character, knowing how he can be, knowing, like, remember in Mexico City, I've never seen as devastating Lewis Hamilton as I've seen on that point during the entire year. And also with his team radio saying, yeah, this is manipulated or whatever after the finish, I would have expected a completely different reaction than Lewis going straight to his competitor, congratulating him on an honest basis, together with his dad, that obviously also went over to Max and Max's dad, and they showed a great sportsmanship. And that was remarkable, that was really impressive. We also have seen Lewis Hamilton spraying the champagne on the podium and not being like Max Verstappen in Saudi Arabia, just vanishing off, not even doing shake hands and whatnot. And I really want to point that out, that this has been a remarkable scene for me personally. I did not expect it that way, and I'm pretty sure many others didn't either. But it has to be seen, and it has to be, well, not congratulated on, but it has to be rewarded. You know, it has to be understood, and it has to be, yeah, like deemed as being a real sportsmanship gesture. That's what I think. Now let's talk about Mercedes. And that is the hard part, because I have to admit, as a fan of Mercedes, I'm more supporting Mercedes rather than Lewis at this stage. Being a Mercedes fan, I want them to appeal, and I want them to appeal and not to appeal at the same time. And here's why. No matter if they, like, given the fact that they appeal and they would get success and they would get this championship turned around, me as a fan, and I'm also sure Lewis as their driver, they would not have any satisfaction of this 8th driver title whatsoever. And I personally would say, I mean, like, yeah, okay, Lewis is World Championship now, but how? And I'm saying the same about Max, like, you know, Max deserves it, Lewis would deserve it, but Max's championship, but how? Or champion of 2021, but how? Like, and this is the overall tragedy with the entire race. It's like whoever has come out as a winner or will have come out as a winner in the near future, we don't know yet. Mercedes have not said they appealed or have not filed the appeal, or will they appeal, will they not appeal? If they appeal, will it get turned down? Will it succeed? We don't know yet. But either way, with the complete controversy that is going on right now, this year's championship is cursed and is kind of destroyed in its value, in its meaning, in its overall appearance, and it's just not, in Germany you would say, it's not würdig to be a championship like that. It's not, you know, the championship itself, the entire battle has been so intense, so great, so close, but the outcome and the way we came to the outcome is just not applicable, and it's just should not have been applied in that situation, in that championship. And it is a tragedy back and forth. It's a tragedy for Max, it's a tragedy for Red Bull. The behavior of Red Bull is a tragedy from my point of view, pointing out Mercedes being a sore loser. Mercedes might be a sore loser, but don't even think that if Red Bull would have been in the position of Mercedes, they would have not done the same till yet right now. Remember how hard they fought for Lewis getting disqualified for Silverstone afterwards, taking Albon out in the car, recreating the scene. If you do that, and then find yourself in the same situation that Mercedes finds itself right now, what would you do? I mean, we all know what Mr. Marco, Mr. Horner and Mr. Jonathan Wheatley would do. They would run to the FIA, they would appeal and say, hey, the safety car was out too long, we've not had a chance to even do anything. Let's face it, they would have done 100% exactly the same. And that is why, I mean, I can understand the picture of Mercedes being displayed in the public and being displayed in all the fans and being displayed in all the social media. But fuck it, it's just not right. It is the same thing that Red Bull would have done. And also, I think Mercedes owes it to their fans to, maybe not to the fans, but the Mercedes leader management owes it to everyone in the factory and owes it to Lewis. Like, imagine you're a backside engineer in Mercedes headquarters, and Toto Wolff comes home on Tuesday and you're saying, hey, you got completely robbed there, why didn't you appeal? Oh, we just didn't feel like it, or we just don't want it to be a sore loser. Like, obviously that worker would never do so, but Toto Wolff needs to go home into the basement and say, you 1,000 people have ripped off your beep for 365 days in a row and more. And I just now couldn't be asked to deal with the situation or what? Like, sure not. So I think Mercedes at least had to do what they did, which was protesting, and which was going to the stewards, trying to get the result overturned in some way. And for the time being they failed, but as we've talked about already, they've lodged the interest to appeal in the International Court of Appeal. And well, I think that, yeah, as I said, that as a result of this kind of championship, it's sad for it's mega sad for the sport. It is 100% reputation damage to the FIA, and the common spectator, whether that is me as being a diehard F1 fan, or whether that is just some random bloke saying, okay, there is something happening in sporting history, I'm gonna have a look at that race. For everyone, this is a big tragedy, because as it stands, provisionally, officially, whatever you want to call it, Max Verstappen is world champion, but this may still change, so the season is not into the books. And it can still take up to 2 months till we all know. Effectively, what we wanted to have last Sunday is everyone is 100% sure and 100% accepts Max Verstappen is the world champion. And, well, you can be fans, or you can be haters, or you can be supporters or not be supporters. But this is what we all actually wanted. Whether we agree with the things or not agree with the things is on a different piece of paper, or also is a different topic. From a personal level, I obviously disagree, because I'm a Mercedes fan, and the later part of this video now will be about that scenery, will be about the possibility and the actual situation as in how it is. So yeah, so far, Mercedes did nothing wrong, Red Bull did nothing wrong, Max did nothing wrong, Lewis did nothing wrong, but all of them four I've just mentioned, and you can put the spectator on it, the spectator obviously did nothing wrong, but we all are losers to the legal tragedy that's going on right now in Formula One. And we're now going to have a look at that, starting with having a look into the regulations, and then having a look into the stewards' decisions and the paper, and in the end we will come to some closing with my personal thoughts on it. But as I already mentioned, let's start with the sporting regulations first. So let's start with the FIA Sporting Code. That is divided into two parts. Actually, the International Sporting Code, that is given the overall governing body for everything, and then there is the Formula One Sporting Code, which is, yeah, kind of a carbon copy of the International Sporting Code, but just a little bit more focused on F1 specific things and so on. But effectively, we want to start with paragraph 15 of the Formula One Sporting Code, which is the form among holders of an FIA super license following officials will be nominated by the FIA, which is 3 stewards, a race director, and furthermore 1 steward from the National Motorsport Association and the clerk of a course. We're only going to focus on those 3 instances, so the race director, the stewards, and the clerk of the course. Furthermore, in 15.3 there is the rule that the clerk of the course shall work in permanent consultation with the race director. However, the race director shall have overriding authority in the following matters, and the clerk of the course may give orders in respect of them only with his express agreement. A, B, C, D, E. Point E, the use of the safety car. So that is the point where we're gonna need to further dig into it and talk about it. That will be surely interesting exploration of rights and legal aspects that we're going to follow. So that is the task for the race director and the clerk of the course. So basically you can see the race director being at the very top and the clerk of the course being a sub-delegate to the race control, which usually carries out some key tasks like managing the safety car, either in agreement with race control or with a race director, or if in disagreement with the race director's decision has more weight, so will be conducted in the end. That is what race director and the clerk of the course do. And now we're going to have a look, I need to scroll down a little bit here further, into Article 11.9, the authority of the stewards, which is now from the FIA International Sporting Code. So 11.9.1, the stewards shall have supreme authority for the enforcement of the code, of the regulations of the FIA. That is the first sentence. The sentence is not finished here, but of the FIA and appropriate national rules, supplementary regulations, and so on, within the framework of the event for which they are appointed. So, race stewards have to make sure that FIA applies the correct code and needs to make sure that the event is conducted within the sporting regulations given by FIA's International Sporting Code, and on top of that, the Formula One Sporting Code as well. 11.9.2a, they may settle any matter which might arise during the event subject to the right of appeal provided in the code. So, if FIA does a decision, a team disagrees with it, or in general some incident happens, then the stewards need to come up and make sure that the code is applied and penalties are given, reprimands are given, whatnot. Like, you know the standard procedure on it. Then there is a few things that they can do, like 11.9.3, within the framework of the duties they notably shall decide what penalty, amend the supplementary regulation, may alter the composition of the number of heats. For that, again, this is the overall sporting code, so that number of heats goes for rallycross or so. May authorize a new start. In case of dead heats, goes out also to motocross. May impose penalties or fines, may pronounce disqualification, and now comes the important one, 11.9.3.h, may amend the classifications, and that is what Mercedes has asked for in the end. We're going to go deeper into that files later on. Actually, we're going to do that right now, because this is the point where the claim of Mercedes, where the protest actually has gone into. So we've also had the protest that Verstappen was ahead of Lewis Hamilton within the in-lap of the safety car. We got that turned off or turned around and rejected, and I'm fine with that, because you know, he was alongside, he kind of overtook him, but obviously gave the position back and so on. So, you know, in the heat of the situation, with a championship at risk and with a championship on the line, nothing one would really want to penalize at this stage. Anyway, and we're gonna go together through that claim of Mercedes. So, Mercedes, or the claim of Mercedes, that there were 2 breaches of the sporting regulation, which is Article 48.12 of the Formula 1 Sporting Code, which is Article 48 is the safety car procedures. So as I've already mentioned, everything in Formula 1 has procedures. It is like 30 minutes to the pit road closes, 15 minutes to the start of the formation lap. There is the national anthem. 10 minutes before that, drivers need to get ready, and then, you know, that sequence. With 1 minute to go, the third light distinguishes, so 2 red lights with 20 seconds to go. The second light distinguishes, no one allowed to be on the car, and after the last light went out, formation lap starts. So that is a regulation on how formation lap needs to be conducted according to the Formula 1 Sporting Code. So there is a code in everything. There is a regulation and a procedure in everything, and what Mercedes is claiming, and we're gonna jump together into the Sporting Code altogether. There we have it. Paragraph or Article 48.12. If the clerk of the course considers it safe to do so, and the message "lapped cars may now overtake" has been sent to all competitors via the official messaging system, now comes the important one. Any cars that have been lapped by the leader will be required to pass the cars on the lead lap and the safety car. Well, now there is the first argument, whether any cars means all cars at the same time, because not all cars have passed the leader to unlap themselves during the safety car period as to the regulation. So the moment Article 48.12 got triggered by Macy saying the 5 cars are allowed to go by, this article was triggered and was active and was conducted. But it hasn't been conducted in full. But again, you can argue now whether any car means all cars, yes or no, but it will be quite irrelevant for the scene, because further down in this article it also says, unless the clerk of the course considers the presence of the safety car still necessary, now comes the important part, once the last lapped car has passed the leader, the safety car will return to the pits at the end of, important, at the end of the following lap. So we quickly go back into the race. Middle of sector 2, lap 57. Lapped cars may now overtake, or 5 lapped cars may now overtake, has been announced. The last car, which was Leclerc, passed the safety car on the entry of turn 9 during lap 57. Which means, according to this rule 48.12, the earliest point of which the safety car could have been called in this lap was the final lap, lap 58, which essentially would have meant the race would have finished under the safety car. And that is what Mercedes claimed. So we're going back to the claim, and we're going to read that out in full. Mercedes claimed that there were 2 breaches of the sporting regulations, Article 48.12, namely that which states any cars that have been lapped by the leader will be required to pass the cars on the lead lap and the safety car. And once the last lapped car has passed the leader and the safety car will return to the pits at the end of the following lap. Mercedes then argued that had this been compiled, car 44 would have won the race. If I would have been Mercedes, I would have not argued with the car number 44 would have won the race. I would have just said we would have finished under the safety car and the classification would have been like 2 laps before, would have been like as it was on lap 56 when the safety car was deployed. So in other news, I would have said FIA would have not brought up a change of order by some artificial action. Anyway, they therefore request the stewards to amend the classification under Article 11.9.3.h of the FIA International Sporting Code. Remember, stewards are there to make sure that the code is applied. The code as in Article 48.12, which has not fully applied. And now Mercedes wants stewards to fulfill their duty and amend the classification. That was what Mercedes tried to bring in. And I have obviously put in some notes to this because now Red Bull also was on the case. And Red Bull has been here as being, I don't know, the defending party or the Tangjal party, because they have been asked to run with that as well. And I have now highlighted a few things in here, such as Article 48.12, such as Article 9.11.9.3h. And now we're gonna go through Red Bull's arguments in the defense. So Red Bull argued that any does not mean all. Okay, fair point, but any means at least one. And in the moment, and I said this, the clerk of the course, or if race director overrules it, race director has the chance to A, trigger 48.12, or B, not trigger 48.12. But the moment, and that's how I understand it, there is obviously some subjective thinking in it, but the moment Article 48.12 is being conducted or is being triggered, you need to completely apply it. It's not like you can apply this part of 48.12 and not the other part, because it's one article. If you apply it, you need to apply it in full. And there is evidence that you need to apply it in full, because 2020, the Eiffel Grand Prix, yes, the Nürburgring, Lando Norris dropped out at turn 6 and a safety car was called. A lot of people complain that this safety car period has taken so long. After the race, Macy gave an interview saying the safety car period has been as long because there are because he is required of specific procedures during the safety car to be met and to be conducted. I've also put the article in here now, so that you can read it yourself, what Macy really said. But essentially what he said back then, the moment he had other cars to let by, there was a procedure he had to follow, which was getting everyone by, getting the order back in business, and then have another lap behind the safety car as per the regulations. There was no chance he could abbreviate from that, or abbreviate from that. That is what happened 1.5 years ago by Mr. Michael Macy himself. So, we're going to talk about that later further, I guess. Number 2 of Red Bull. The Article 48.13 of the sporting regulation states that the message safety car in this lap is the signal that it will enter the pit lane at the end of that lap. Yes, okay, sure. 3. That therefore Article 48.13 overrides Article 48.12. No, it doesn't state that. Article 48.13 says, when the clerk of the course decides it's safe to call on the safety car, the message safety car in this lap will be sent to all competitors via the official messaging system, and the orange car's lights will be extinguished. This will be the signal for competitors and the drivers that it will be entering the pit lane at the end of this lap. There is some more blah blah blah, but in no single line of 48.13 it says that it overrules 48.12. And beyond that, you have to also understand how a sporting code is written. There is A, then comes B, then comes C. There is a chronological order behind it, so you can jump full points. What I mean is, like Article 48.11 says, under certain circumstances, the clerk of the course may ask the cars and the safety car to use the pit lane. So between 48.11 and 48.13, you're not required to conduct 48.12. But if you do, you need to conduct it in full, and you can surely not say that 48.13 overrides 48.12, because they have nothing to do with each other. Apart from the fact that even 48.12 defines the earliest point of time where 48.13 could be triggered in that regard. So I think that is the important message at this stage. Point 3 of Red Bull, therefore the Article 48.13 overrides 48.12. are noted as simply no behind that. That's just not right. 4. That Article 15.3 gives the race director overriding authority over the use of the safety car. Yes, in the way that he doesn't need to agree with the clerk of the course. And I think this is the pinpointing thing, because the stewards later said that Article 15.3 allows the race director to control the use of the safety car, which in our determination includes its deployment and its withdrawal. Now, I think even that sentence, that can be argued, the deployment and the withdrawal in their point of time can be at the discretion of race control, but remember, stewards need to be there to make sure the code is applied completely and in full. Race director has also to follow the code, also to follow the regulations, which in this case he clearly didn't do. Which leads us to the 5th point, that even if all cars that had been lapped, 8 in total, of which 5 were allowed to over the safety car itself, it would not have changed the outcome of the race. Arguably, perhaps. I mean, it's irrelevant because you can't say. Who would have known if, like, Sainz got a massive run on Max for whatever reason? Who knows? We can't just say that. We can't just pretend that. So I think the 5th point is completely irrelevant, makes no sense whatsoever as in defense. But here's now what the conclusions of the stewards is. And the stewards consider that the protest is admissible. We know that. Having considered the various statements made by the parties, Article 15.3 allows the race director to control the use of the safety car, which in our determination includes its deployment and its withdrawal. So what the stewards are saying by this particular sentence would mean that the race director can do anything he wants, everything he thinks is just right now, and apply it absolutely at his discretion. And if you think about it, there are like 3 to 4 bullet points that we should make our mind up to, which is, like, if the race director can completely overrule the clerk of the course and all otherwise applicable safety car rules, and even those regarding safety, for example, when the rules even, when the race director can do anything whatsoever he wants, why is there written a governing safety car procedure in the first place? If it can be changed at any time, if no one in Formula 1, if no one of the teams, no one of the drivers knowing what is the exact procedure, what's going to happen at any time, in any case, not only the safety car procedure. Like it could, the stewards have actually said that if Michael Masi wants to extinguish the last light of the formation lap, or the third light of the formation lap, when the lights are on, 3 to go is a minute, 2 to go is 20 seconds, 1 to go is everyone away from the car, we're gonna go formation lap. Now when he turns, just sits there in control tower and I'm gonna leave on the third light for 30 seconds to go to the formation lap. That is what this speech, or the conclusion of the stewards, is saying right there, that Michael Masi could do that. So why have procedures then in the first place? The second would be if the race director can completely overrule the otherwise applicable safety car rule, and a given 15.3 that he can do what he wants, why would the stewards even say he's obliged to follow rule 48.13, which he obviously did? That is in the later part of the conclusion. We're going to come back to the conclusion actually right now to read out that part. So that the further behind 15.3, stewards have come to the conclusion that although Article 48.12 may not have been applied fully in relation to the safety car returning to the pits at the end of the following lap, Article 48.13 overrides that. And once the message safety car is in this lap has been deployed, it is mandatory to withdraw the safety car at the end of that lap. So we quickly think about, why is 48.12 not necessary to be conducted, whereas 48.13 is? Doesn't make any sense, does it? So that is contradicting itself in my personal opinion. And if then the race director has performed this task in accordance with the rules as written, and has specifically described that he's obligated to follow them in other circumstances, why could he now violate them? And that is the point what I said about the Eiffel Grand Prix race. On that occasion, he said he had to follow the code. He had to follow the sporting code and made sure that all cars unlapped themselves. This took time, and then the code requires, if the last car overtakes the leader and the safety car in turn 1, then the safety car needs to end the full lap and then even needs to do another one, because it's the following lap is the earliest defined point as per the sporting regulations, where the safety car can come back in to pit road. And back then, summer 2020, Michael Masi just stated, as per the sporting code, it was required the safety car to keep it out that long. There was no other chance to do it. Yeah, so you guys can think over it whatever you want. I disagree with it. I disagree with what the stewards have just said. If 15.3 applies and he got control over everything whatsoever it is, why do we have procedures? How can we actually be sure that if race control is in funny mood right now, it just changes the complete procedure of whatever? That is the first thing. And then the second thing is, how can stewards say that 48.12 can be overruled with 48.13, whereas it doesn't say so in any sporting code, neither in the international sporting code nor in the Formula 1 specific sporting code, and then claims, but 48.13 is important and needs to be obeyed? That's just wrong. That is contradicting. And that is the big dilemma. And this is why personally I'm interested to see Mercedes appealing this case. Because something's fucked up here. Something's seriously fucked up. And at the same time, I'm sad for Max and Red Bull that they cannot celebrate they do celebrate the championship regardless, but you know what I mean. It is a big tragedy, the way it's conducted and the way it's been handled after all. Remember, the stewards are there. They are required to make sure that the code, that the sporting code is been 100% applied to the Formula 1 race. And I think we both can agree that it has not been the case. Now we can argue, how do you want to interpret this 15.3 rule where the race control or the race director can overrule the clerk of the course? So can you overrule the clerk of the course and manage the tasks being given to the clerk of the course at his discretion while still following the code? Or does it mean 15.3, if you trigger it, you can do whatever you want? And you can do whatever you want is kind of what the stewards have interpreted that one. But it's contradicting, you know. Masi once just said himself, he needs to conduct and to apply in full Article 48.12 of the safety car regulations before being able to pull the safety car back in and triggering Article 48.13. And this is the exact issue. This is the exact situation that we have here right now. You know, Formula 1 teams are notoriously perfectionists. Now, I'm pretty sure another idea that I would have had if I would have been Peter Bonington was like, you know, I would have had a look on the race and say, hey, we got just 4 laps to go. With all those regulations and everything, like, I mean, Mercedes doesn't know how the safety car procedure is. So again, we speak about procedures being in place and being calculatable with, being expectable or to be expected and so on. I would have said, you know what, we don't even need a box because we'll save anyway. Just the race will finish under the safety car. And that was probably also the reason why Papa Toto came on the radio and said, Michael, that is so not right. And first I thought that is so not right, as in that is very, very, very wrong. But I think he more meant like that is not in the way you do it, it's not right. You can interpret that team radio message from Toto to Masi however you want it. Could have been just like, you know, his German English coming through. Could have been very well said what he actually thinks is going on, which is the fact that we're speaking about the safety car procedure being violated here by race control, as in so not right, you know. And that is all a big clusterfuck, you know. Yes, the teams have found consent and have agreed that they want to have the race finishing not on the safety car but in green flag condition. But you know, if you want to make, see, this is how I feel it as a spectator and as a driver and as a sportsman. And I could probably think, I mean, afterwards Red Bull will disagree, but if they don't know the outcome, I'm pretty sure Red Bull will agree with saying, if you want to neutralize the race and got an actual race, a sprint over 1 lap, over 3 laps, over 5 laps, whatever, if you want that championship decision being fought out on track, and if you have to bring the field together to not create any advantages or disadvantages, you I can't believe I say this, you make it same for everyone and just throw a red flag. This would have been a very easy way for Masi to do it for the show, to bring a showdown for the last lap, for the last whatsoever distance is remaining. This would give everyone an equal chance, like Lewis could come in, put on fresh soft tires, Max could put on fresh soft tires, everyone is in the right position fighting against each other. And this would certainly, and this is the biggest advantage of all, like today we would have either celebrated the championship of Max hard or of Lewis hard. But we would have known that unless on that lap or on that distance till a checkered flag some other shenanigans would have happened, we would have exactly known who's our goddamn freaking champion of this awesome 2021 year. But as of right now, as of today, we do not know. And we do not know because there is loopholes everywhere in that sporting code. The rules needs to be fixed for the future year, 100%. And I don't know. I mean, right now with the safety car going on, and I'm quite surprised that Maisie didn't even think of that. The location where the car was stricken with all the debris around, it would have justified a red flag. No one would have complained, I'm pretty sure. But the safety car, first of all, created a situation where only Max really had the chance from benefit to it, and Lewis could only lose out in terms of the strategy. And then with how the strategy outplayed, it was crystal clear the moment the calls came. Lewis is out on the hards, on very old hards. Max is out on very fresh softs. And then Maisie came around and said, okay, and now we're gonna remove only the lap cars in between. And now show me any racing team or any party that would not feel robbed by this. Because given the opportunities, and I know, we're at this point where people would now complain again about Silverstone and whatnot, and how Lewis could get away with a 10-second penalty. But I'm pretty sure, again, this is the stage, this is the point where FIA is like, we need to judge the situation as it is and not consider what outcome it has. This is the reason why Lewis only got 10 seconds and not something worse, And well, you got to say though, the moment where this call was made to remove all the cars in between, of course you had the championship contenders one by one against each other, but you could have put Max into perhaps a Williams on fresh soft tires and see how that Williams humiliate that Mercedes on hard tires. The performance gap between those tires is so huge. 40 lap old hards versus kind of fresh softs. I mean, Hamilton must have felt like a pig that's been brought to the slaughter. Absolutely humiliated. He had no chance whatsoever. And now you could argue, but what if Mercedes would have changed tires on the safety car period before? In that safety car period where we were right now, they could not change it. There's no possible chance how they could change tires whilst not lose track position. In the VSC, perhaps. But even with a VSC and 21 lap old medium tires compared to fresh soft, I would have still said Lewis had no chance. And that is not what we wanted, isn't it? We wanted a fair and square fight, not one. I mean, at the end of the day, you can say it's all racing, and it would have been racing. If the safety car would have come 2 laps earlier, if the safety car would have come 3 laps earlier, the procedure would have been followed. We had 2 laps of racing. Okay, no one would have mourned. No one would have had an issue. No one would have not accepted that Max is the world champion, and that's racing, yeah. But this is the sick thing. FIA is calling it racing when FIA is starting to not conduct on their own code, overriding one code with another code, whilst not, I think, according to the sporting regulations, if we've seen it, not really able to, and then call it that's racing. I don't think that is. I think that is, I don't know. That is a referee doing being biased. You can see it like that as well. I'm not actually saying FIA is biased, but it could be considered FIA being biased towards Red Bull and wanting, for the marketing sakes of it, the right one to win. I don't know. Motorsport is a very political sport. Again, I'm not saying it is like that, but you point out Mercedes being a sore loser. You have to point out that FIA did the worst possible job in that regard. Maisie, whatever, the stewards as well. Actually, stewards just justified the mistakes Maisie did. Maisie on the one hand side, in Nürburgring I had to follow the code. Here I did not have to follow the code. And then stewards came around and saying, we're here to make sure that the code is applied, but Maisie didn't have to follow the code. Huh? Seriously? It still gives me a headache. And this is after over an hour now, the point where me as a Mercedes fan cannot be 100% objective anymore. Like, I feel screwed over as a spectator. And as a Mercedes supporter, I feel robbed, being robbed the title, being robbed a record, Yes, as a German, of course, it's very nice that Michael Schumacher's 7-time World Championship record still holds up and so on. But if you try to see with a neutral glass, not being a Max fanboy, not being a Mercedes fanboy or a Lewis fanboy, you have to say that this sport has, FIA has fucked up. This is not right. Now the question is the result legal? Is it illegal? Would be a 2-lap countback fair? Probably not. Given the circumstances, how much the lead of Lewis was, there was no thinkable way of how Max Verstappen could have even reached Lewis in any circumstance, So given how the race has conducted till that point, there was a 98% chance that Hamilton would have been champion, and with a safety car being called and being conducted in the way it was conducted, there was suddenly a 98% chance that Max Verstappen is the world champion, and that only is not being brought by racing and the code how it needs to be conducted. That has been brought actively by FIA steward or by FIA calls by Michael Maisie's instructions. And that is my very honest opinion about that. I think a lot of things needs to be changing for next year. We know that Red Bull isn't happy. We know that Mercedes can't be happy. They are furious of, Papa Toto, the last 3 races. I know many people dislike him. And he can be a bit of two-faced as well, maybe. But who isn't in that sport? Look at Horner, look at Marco. Those interviews, I can't listen to them. They are contradicting themselves and kind of live in their own world and see their own flags and boats floating everywhere. But yeah, that is what I think and how I see the events that happened last weekend. That said, again, Max Verstappen absolutely deserves the championship, absolutely deserves winning it. It's just the way he won it. If he would have just won the race, I would have been the first sitting here saying, kudos, you've been the best over the year. Full stop. And he would also deserve it. All this bad luck he had in the entire year now came around and formed up in one single situation, which made the job done, which made the bad luck having throughout the year kind of irrelevant anyway. But that's not the thing, is it? That's not how we want this title really to be decided. And I don't know. I can't really be happy with it. And again, will Mercedes now go on with that appeal? I don't know. I could think the Mercedes brand itself is too much of a risk to really do it, because Lewis would probably even deny being champion like this. And then Toto has to do so. I've pointed it out already. It is 100% logical thing that you file a protest and try to appeal it, because you would have not worked all year long for this success, for this title, to then being taken away like this and actually see a chance that you have been a victim of a fraud that has been conducted somehow. And, well, what will happen now, we don't know. if Mercedes says, yep, this is our appeal, Mercedes got 15 days of time to bring up their reasoning. Then stewards have 15 days of time to bring up their defense, and then judges have 15 days of time to come to a conclusion. Good luck with that. I'd say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and then maybe we know who's the champion of 2021. Anyway, guys, it would take forever if I keep going on, so I'll just leave it at this. This is my perspective of the things. I'm happy to hear your thoughts. Put them down in the comment area below. Put feedback in. If you think, Michi, you're such a Mercedes fanboy, stop talking and just accept it. And yeah, put it in as well. I don't think I have been too subjective, but maybe I was. Hands down, no idea. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the insight. I hope you've liked the video, and I would appreciate if you subscribe to the channel. Come back for more sim racing and racing related content. Not too many streams this week because Friday LMVS qualifying, Saturday Le Mans Virtual Series, Sebring 500. Guys, we got the full packed week, and yeah, it's gonna be the last weekend before Christmas. Anyway, guys, thanks for your time. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we see you there next time. Goodbye.